Uh-oh. Uh-oh to you, too. Hi, welcome to Caffe Lena Poetry Mike Night. Let me start over. Welcome to Caffe Lena Poetry Night. Hey. This is going to be a featured reading with Catherine Arra. Let's hear it for Catherine. And we're going to have an open mic reading after that. The reading by Catherine is going to be streamed online. So hello to everyone who is watching out there. Let's you guys say hello to them. Let's hear them. Let's hear you. Yay for the combo event. Right, yeah, there you go. We have a really unruly front of the stage crowd tonight, so I think that's going to make it more fun. So once Catherine reading's over, we're going to take a short break. You can all tell her how wonderful she was, buy some of her books, and then we'll come back and do the open mic, and the open mic won't be streamed. That'll be just us. It'll be very private and special. So that's a lot to look forward to. We have some great people that came here and signed up to read. So we are going to start with Catherine's reading. Catherine is a former high school English and writing teacher. She has a lot of publications. She has 5 full-length poetry collections, 3 chapbooks. Her most recent poetry collection is with Dos Madres Press, and it's entitled Dear Love. She's a native of the Hudson Valley, and she lives up here most of the time, so we're catching her right at the end of her stay up here, and then she heads down to Florida. If you want to learn more about her, she has a website, catherinearra.com. Let's give her a huge welcoming applause. Here's Catherine.
Good evening, Caffe Lena. The unruly crowd, they're my friends. They're all in the front here. Thank you so much, Carol, for inviting me. And those of you who've come out, thank you. And I hope many of you are poets, and I look forward to hearing your work. So I had the good fortune in the last 3 years to have 3 books published. But the unfortunate part of it was that it was during COVID. So I had no opportunities to do readings or to book launches or parties. So what I'd like to do tonight is just read a sampling, a few poems, or maybe one poem from those last 3 books, starting with my most recent book, which was published this April, and it's entitled Dear Love. This is the book, and it's about a very special relationship I had with a female deer, a doe, and it became a transcendent relationship for me. We knew each other for about 5 years. So I'm going to begin by reading a few poems from that book since it's my most recent. And this one is called Ode to Forest. It's the first poem that I wrote for her. And here we go. Ode to Forest. As if you slip between folded time, slants of light, a traveler, messenger, you appear and wait. Your moon pool eyes swim me in milky earth brown. And then a single beam of soul fire just below Betty Boop lashes beckons. I swear I hear my name. Sweet young doe, spirit animal, mine. You came in early spring, an open slash on your right flank. And though wounded, you tender-eyed, ear-hugged, wet-nosed, nodded me to stop, stay, see, to meet you beyond the wood, the wild, and whirling of planets. You offered me passage, taught me to match breath, heartbeats, read nuance and gesture. I named you forest. You named me tree. I gave you an apple. You gave me root. And this next one is, thanks. She was a sweet girl. And this next one is entitled Estrus, and it's about the mating season among deer. And it's a deer sex poem, and that always is a good thing, you know. And I do want to say I witnessed this scene. It happened in my backyard. And I got the binoculars out and saw the whole thing. And and then immediately wrote it down. So here you go. Estrus. You invited him to follow behind lilacs, naked in early snow. You sidled ahead, paused, coy, glanced back, lifted your chin. You let him press his nose into hind fur, lean long into the lure of you, and then you had him, 6-point buck, all intent. You crouched ever so daintily, a back leg curtsy, and as gently as if to test his bulk against your petite, his force against your feminine, he half mounted and dismounted. But then, the way thunder shatters sleep, he climbed on top with the certainty of a god, seated you in 3 packed thrusts, withdrew, stepped back, waited, while you flicked your fully fluffed white tail as if waving a victory boa or fanning cool air into a hot canal. Floating the stillness in wildness, he waited, tending you, his lightning eyes set beneath his crown, and set on you while you waited for all to settle into next season's fawn. Out of that mating came 3 fawns. 2 survived, but I didn't see a forest for a while. Of course, when deer have their fawns, they disappear. They conceal them, they take care of them. And then one night she came by, and this was our first greeting after that. And this poem is the last one I'll read from this collection. It's entitled, Some Sweet. You came around at dusk, alone, ears tuned towards wood for the rustle or mew of your new offspring. Attentive mother, fatigued after fawning, you wanted the bundle of apple pieces all at once, not our usual one by one toss and talk. I chatted away through each crunch saliva, slipping chew, and long neck swallow. Asked you how it went, the birthing, how many this year, 1 or 2. How tired you must be from cleaning, concealing, suckling, and how many fawns before? 5 that I know of, now 6, 7. I told you how Leaf, your yearling boy, came around this morning. What a fine, sturdy-legged buck he is. What a good mother you are. I told you my prayer for you, to live long in green peace, to never suffer or perish by human hands, to die sleeping in a quilted leaf bed under your favorite tree and best loved breeze. You swallowed the last apple wedge and stepped to me, a full body neck stretch closer than you have ever. I stilled, matched instincts, and for a moment we were timeless, a bare breath apart, like Michelangelo's almost touch of God and man. I felt you whisper, more sweet crunch, more sweet after strain, more sweetness, please. I scurried into the house, quickly sliced another, this time in a pan of corn too, and placed all before you. You will do this year after year until you no longer can, or die. What compels you through the cycles and seasonal trials? The rigors of rut, the race against hunters' guns, the hollow hunger in winter to do it over and over, and still look into me with wild doe love. Thank you. I did love that deer. And the book that was published last summer through Finishing Line Press is a book based on the life of Mileva Merrick Einstein, and this is that book. It's called Her Landscape, and again, it was July of last summer, so nothing happened. I mean, we were all locked down at that point, so I'm really grateful to have some opportunity to read from this book. Einstein, as many of you, or Mileva, as many of you might know, is Einstein's first wife, whom he met at the Swiss Polytechnic in Zurich, where they were both students for the same degree in physics and mathematics. They fell in love, and she got pregnant, and that pregnancy, it was pretty much derailed her career. She had to go back to Serbia, which is where she was from, to have the child with her family. And when she returned to Zurich to finish her degree, and while Einstein had gone on, she tried to catch up but couldn't. They did eventually marry and have 2 sons. However, she would never be able to go back to science, but she did work very carefully and collaboratively with Albert, especially during his miracle year of great discoveries that led to, groundbreaking theories in physics. So she was his helper and collaborator, but she was never given credit. And what compelled me to write this book, which is a collection of 35 persona poems written in the imagined voice of Mileva, after a lot of reading and research, was to give her a voice in a history that silenced her. So this first poem is the first poem in the book, and it's entitled Mileva, and it's a poem in which she introduces herself. His trajectory would span time itself, his magnetic field, his center of gravity, Givens, a blueprint demanding architects, builders, fans, financiers, and sacrifice. He siphoned people into himself, a whirlpool, or pulled them along in his wake. Irresistible, his vision unrelenting, his poetry and light inescapable. All were helpless against their love, hate, or awe of him. Each in kind, family, colleagues, lovers, would become fuel, lift, velocity, his coterie in collusions, betrayals, all that was necessary to complete the arc of his life. It was non-negotiable. No one bargains with God. I knew his mind, merged and mated with it. I loved the man too, his boyish frailty, his appetites and sensuality, the padding softness of his footfall, the rhythms of his breathing, his smell, the way he beckoned me, come. I was his wife. I am Mileva. And she was a really remarkable, resilient, brilliant woman in her time, for her time. This next poem is a short one from the collection. It's entitled Liebe, which in German means love. What can a woman with a head full of science, a brain for math, an intellect of armor, a steel-edged warrior determination to study, earn a degree, rise above commonplace, to be anything other than common, the only woman in 1896 to enter the Swiss Federal Polytechnic, a candidate for a diploma and PhD in mathematics and physics, yet a woman who's never been properly kissed, due against the soft-spoken, sensual genius, the barefooted violinist, when he brown-eyed wooed her, playfully pursued her, pleaded, placated, smiled, and inched his lips and breath so close to her cheek, she trembled and joyfully leapt into an ocean of flesh. And that was the end of her. All right, and this next one from the book, the Mileva book, is entitled Corseted, and this is what I believe she might have had to say after she helped Einstein with his groundbreaking theories and then left her. He gave her the shaft. He left her for his first cousin, Elsa, and she was left raising his 2 sons, and that was that. So, corseted. I did it for him, for science. How could I not? The work was essential for our future, the world's. He insisted sharing his name, Einstein, one stone, was sharing credit, and then erased in ambiguity, abandoned for the Elsa Marie cliché, women adept at social prancing and prattle, at using men who use them, at perpetuating the masculine myth, oppression, and entitlement that renders women, no matter how alluring or clever, invisible. How dare he complain of my dark moods, dismiss my unhappiness? He used me not only for the pedaled passage between my thighs, but for the infinite possibilities of my mind, the worst kind of theft. A volcano pressed between the weight of oceans, the furnace of Earth's core. I'm wife of the work. And this is the last poem I'll read from the Maleva collection. It's a short poem in her voice, and it's entitled Old World. Say my deformity made me a shy, introverted girl, my arrogance a cold, stubborn student, my carelessness a bereaved mother. Say my intellectual limitations failed me as a scientist, my demands drove Albert away. Say I couldn't possibly have conceived relativity. I say the hard iron double standard shackles of men offer such poor opinions of me. Thank you. That book compelled me to write it. I just spent an entire winter immersed in her life and then channeling her pretty much. It was a good experience. And I'd like to read one poem from the book that came before that. This was published in November, I think, of 2019, and then shortly after that we went into the pandemic. And this book is entitled Women in Parentheses, and I'm just going to read one poem from this book. It's a book that is basically about a lot of different women, even though there are some poems about my own experience, but I took a look around and I watched, looking at other women I know, situations women find themselves in, and I realized women are often stuck in brackets. They're often placed in parentheses that they create for themselves with their own limitations, or society or culture creates for them. So that's really what the book's about. Different women in different traps and how they get out of them. And this is a poem that is about me. It's a true story, actually, that happened to me when I was a very young teacher. I spent 30 plus years in the public school classroom, and I had this experience when I was probably 21. I think it was my first full year of teaching. And this is even how 13-year-olds can. All right, so the poem is called Transparent Pants. We are a small family, 10 or 12 counting me, 7th grade basic English, recently renamed from the pejorative special curriculum, or SPCU for short. Downtown kids, each with a story. I'm teaching a lesson in subject-verb agreement, still convinced presentation is everything. They've been willing, but now, halfway through, Dante raises his hand and blurts, "Yo, teacher!" I stop, turn, holding my chalk. With great urgency, he says, "Roger has a boner." He points. "Show her, Raj." Roger springs from his seat, stands with puffed chest. I look down at his too tight, transparent, summer white pants, yellow and gray from too many or too few washings. There it is. His swollen stalk etched perfectly and larger than I would have imagined for his 13 years. Roger beams. We all look. We are awed by this brief hiatus in higher learning. Now there are choices a teacher can make, and I think of them all. Finally, I say, "That's very nice, Roger. Thank you for showing us." Roger is pleased as a student who just received an A, smiles shyly, and sits down. We go back to subjects and verbs. Presentation is everything. True story. And the best part of that story is many years later, I would leave that school district and go to another one. And I would have Roger's daughter in my Honors 11 English class. And I thought to myself, public education works. You know, anyway, I'd like to read one final poem tonight, and this is from new work. I've been working on a new collection of poems about being in Corona solitude, and I'm also started a new project of writing. I like writing persona poems, imagining I'm in another person's space or mind and writing from that point of view. And what this is, I've been working on a series of persona poems based on the major arcana of the tarot deck, which are archetypes. And so I'm in the voice of the archetype. And tonight, because it's a new moon tonight, I looked it up on the calendar, I decided to read the poem and finish with the poem that's called The Moon. So, The Moon. Mistress of nightshades, guardian of cats, owls, wolves, sea creatures, and water worlds. In dreams, fantasy, tides, and blood cycles, I entice you to lose your way, make you shatter me in a cruel casting of stones on mirrored water, watch you submit as I ripple to wholeness again and again. Night vision portal, floating white orb, pregnant with secrets, deceptions, the longings you tell no one. I answer the faith you bestow in gazing upon me, calling my names, wolf in the howling hunger of January, worm when earth softens and sap flows, strawberry when night air sweetens, buck for velveteen antlers crowning kings, harvest for abundance, blue for your lost twin. I am the seasons of your psyche. I carry you to fullness, erase you in darkness, teach you to trust what cannot be seen. Thank you. It's been my joy, really. Thank you for coming out. There's so many wonderful, happy, poetic faces out there. I love it. Thank you. And thank you, Carol, and Joe on the TV. Oh, and my folder. Come on, do what you love. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take a quick